I'm Mark Lynn, and welcome to the Affordable Housing Tips interview. This is brought to you by affordablehousingtips.com, our website where we talk about all the different things you can do to survive and hopefully prosper in the difficult housing market we're all experiencing. So today, we're fortunate enough to be interviewing Don Chin, who is a real estate broker with Community Realty here in Eureka, California, in beautiful Humboldt County. And we're going to talk about a number of things affecting the housing market, local and national. And Don is going to give us some pointers and some good ideas on things that you can do to make the most of it all. So, Don, did I introduce you reasonably accurately?
You did. You did. Thanks, Mark. It's been a while. I know that you moved to Humboldt. How many years now? Like 15? No, not quite
Don,
that many.
you're close. We came up in 2007,
Okay.
and we might as well start right out with a personal note. Don Chin, in addition to being a fabulous real estate agent here in the county, is the very first person that Elizabeth and I had any dealings with in Humboldt County. We first met Don when we were in San Diego. We reached out looking for realtors. We decided to move up here, and that's how we met Don. And that was 12 years ago.
Yeah, I'm your ambassador, your Redwood Coast ambassador. Uh, that seems like just yesterday, but it's been over a decade, and um, yeah, we need to have a face-to-face one of these days instead of just the cyber interview. But I always love to hear from you guys and see what you're up to and kind of doing this technology thing. It's an honor to be here with you, Mark.
Well, thank you, Don. Thank you, and likewise, likewise. And as far as the face to face, it's a lot easier than some of our Zoom interviews. We interviewed someone from Ireland recently, and
Wow.
she had mentioned that she kind of wished it was a face to face because she'd never been to Humboldt County, but
Ah,
that's a separate story. But if you're ready, I guess we could get into it. We've got a few questions here that we've prepared to talk about for the interview.
okay.
So shall we give it a shot? See what happens.
Yeah, yeah. It's first
Okay.
time
Well,
for me.
Don, for our first question, our first discussion topic, we're going to talk about uh, this year, the current year. How would you recap the residential real estate market in 2019 for Humboldt County? What has been the greatest influence on the market locally? What would you say?
Well, it's a two-part question there. I'd say it's a healthy market, particularly if you're a seller. So, usually there's a seller's market and a buyer's market. Seller's market is generally favorable if you're looking to sell your home and hopefully profit from it. Um, that makes it more difficult for buyers because there's low inventory right now. And so there's a demand on housing. And so most homes that are on the market don't last very long if they're well priced. I'd say the median time on the market's less than 20 days. And recently on my own, I've experienced putting in offers, and there's multiple offers, even for a house that just hit the market. So that shows me that there's a lot of buyers out there, and they're not really, and when they see something they like, there's usually multiple interest in it, especially if it's a reasonably priced home. And right now, our median home price in Humboldt County is in the mid 300 range. So roughly about 325, 330 is kind of where most homes are selling. And so if you get a home that's in that range or less, you're pretty much probably going to see, competition for that type of house. So in other terms, the market's good, and it's prices of homes are increasing in Humboldt. And I would say that we're experiencing maybe a 5% increase in prices from last year. So there's been an upward trend. And if you'd like me to kind of share with you a graph that one of my coworkers did, I could maybe explain that a little bit better if you'd like, Mark. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, if you would like to, sure, go ahead.
So I'll do that, and I'll also kind of add some some other thoughts on that. So let me go to my screen sharing here, and I will pull up a. There we
And let
go.
me interject real quick before you start. At this point in the interview, we're going to be having some visuals, and this audio is also going to wind up on the local radio station. So, for the benefit of the radio viewers, if radio viewers, great radio listeners, if you go to affordablehousingtips.com and click on radio shows, you can see the write up for this show with Don Chin. And I'll have links to the graphics and things he talks about there if you want to see them.
Great.
So,
So
anyway, go ahead.
the chart that I pulled up was graciously shared to me with my coworker Charles McCann, who's been a broker in our area longer than I have. I'm on my 21st year as a real estate broker. Charles has
Oh,
been in the business probably. I don't know if he's been here twice as long as me, but he's a legend. And one thing that I
wow.
like about Charles and that he shares with us in our office is a bunch of charts that he affectionately calls chartles, and
Hurdles. Okay.
this is one of them. And what you're seeing here is a graph that shows how many single family residences has been on the market from January '06 up to January 2020. Now, obviously, we haven't hit January 2020 yet, so
Wow.
he just put this to share with us in the last week. And he normally, every time we have a monthly office meeting, he'll bring out these charts to kind of give all of us agents a snapshot of what the market's doing. So I want to graciously give Charles a shout out for his allowing me to share this. But you can see based
Huh.
on, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse when I'm sharing the
Yeah, I do, as a matter of
screen?
fact.
Okay, so this where I'm pointing here is where the chart starts. So in January '06, we had, just about 500 homes on the market. And then over the next, 13 years, the graph goes, dips up and down year by year. You can kind of see where we're at. So, way back in at the end of '06, there was almost 800 homes on the market. And that was like a lot of inventory.
Yeah.
Right now, if you're looking at October 2019, we're kind of in the low, you know, below 450. So right now, I would consider that a low inventory. So that's why we're seeing kind of the multiple offers and things and so forth. And we've been kind of in a low inventory for a while, and so it's been a seller's market for the last few years. But anyways, one of the things that really influences uh, our market, Mark, is the interest rates for home buyers.
Sure.
And I just checked online with Quicken. Um, Quicken has a website called quickenloans.com, and I'm going to share it. Does that come up right now? Can you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Today's
So,
mortgage rates.
so
Sure.
you can see today's mortgage rates. Anything that's under 4 is a pretty attractive rate. I mean, when I got into the business, it was much higher than this, and I've just been seeing the interest rates really very attractive for the last few years, and which is good for me because I like to help buyers and sellers. And my
Sure.
business is kind of primarily half and half. I sometimes I work with buyers and sometimes I work with sellers, and I don't, you know, if I can see a rate that's a fixed rate of 3 uh, in the high threes, that's a really good deal. So um, that's what I think is really helping buyers is getting a low interest rate. Therefore, their monthly payment is manageable. Um, I I've heard horror stories from people that were in the business before I got in, maybe in the '80s, where the interest rate was like 18 or 19%, or I don't know. You've been around a while. Do you recall like a really high?
I was just gonna say I think it was either the Carter era or maybe the beginning of the Reagan era. So you're right. It was either late '70s, early '80s. It seems like it was Carter. But
Probably,
yeah, I remember double digit,
yeah.
uh,
I can't
double digit.
imagine. I can't
Yeah,
imagine being excited about like a double-digit interest rate, but that's kind of what the United States was dealing with at the time. But I've been fortunate, for the most part, the market's been really good. Um, I did, I did buy my last home kind of during the height of the market, which was, I think, in 2006. Um, so my house has appreciated a little bit in value, but not a whole lot from that time, because that was kind of when home prices were at their peak. So, anyways, that's just kind of a general idea of what your interest rates are right now. There's a VA loan and a 15-year fixed, which is nice if you can afford that. FHA loans seem very popular right now. Those are what a lot of home buyers are using because it's very low down payment as well. So that's something that people like. Um, so if I can pull up another chart, I wanted to
sure.
show you.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. So here's another chart from Charles, and maybe I can zoom in a little bit. So there's on this chart, there's two graphs. One's a blue one and one's a red one. So the red line is the 3-month moving average on median home prices in Humboldt, and the blue line is the 12-month moving average. So you can see down at the bottom of the graph, it shows you every month from 2001 up to January 2021. So he's thinking a little bit in advance, but you can see from like the last January 2013, prices have been steadily going up. So like about 6 years
okay.
ago in 2013, our median home price in Humboldt County was in the 225 range.
Wow.
So right now we're almost like 100,000 more than that six
Hmm,
years later. So you see that the median home price has grown quite a bit over the last 6 years, and
yeah,
so that pretty much means if you want to get a nicer, like a 3-bedroom 2-bath house, maybe around 1,400 1,500 square feet with a garage, you're probably looking at this price, like in the 320 to 330, 340 range.
okay,
Um,
okay.
so, anyways, hopefully that helps, and I'll stop the sharing. But did you have any questions about any of the graphs or data?
Well, on the previous one, there was one point I wasn't sure of exactly when, what year it was, but there was one point where the numbers were really, really way low. The inventory was way low, and I'm just curious if there's any, if you remember what it was that accounted for the ultra low inventory, if there was any unusual thing going on in the
Um,
in the county, or
I can't remember which graph that was. Oh well, I'll stop.
it was the one that your colleague had created
Oh, okay. I
that
think,
showed the numbers of homes for sale,
yeah, I think
and
there we
there's
go,
a
right
point
there.
there where
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
yeah, see it,
2017. That is really low. um, I, I don't know. That's something I probably have to ask Charles why
yeah,
things got that low of inventory. But yeah, that was a rough time for realtors. If you weren't, you probably didn't want to get into the business in January 2017. But
yeah,
I've noticed over the last couple of years, there's a lot more newer agents coming into the business. But yeah, if you got into the market when there was less than a couple hundred or 300 homes on the market, it was feast or famine. I'd have to.
yeah. But interest rates were low then also, as I recall, so that would have been a heck of a seller's market, would it not, with so few for sale? Of
Yeah, yeah,
course,
you
I
would
guess,
you would think that, but you know, right now, around 400, under 450 is kind of what we're looking at, and um, I'm plenty busy, but I've been in this business for a while, so you really have to hustle when you get into the business of as being a realtor, because Um, it
Yeah.
is, you don't make you don't make salary. You got to, most agencies are strict commission basis.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so don't quit your
Yeah.
day job if you're going to be, if
No,
you're gonna be
no,
a
I understand. Produce or or starve. Sure.
yeah.
Oh,
So let me go ahead and stop the sharing, and we can
yeah.
more.
Well, that's a great answer to talking about 2019 for local, but what about the national market? Do you have any thoughts on that? On, you
Yeah,
know,
no,
how,
I don't really dabble too much in that, but I did, I did do a little research, and most people are saying that we have a booming stock market. The economy is strong. They don't foresee a recession nationwide. I think home sales are up, 5.5 to almost 6%. So it's kind of reflective of our, our little Humboldt microcosm. Uh, so I think on the national level, I did pull up some. I did have a website as well, which I'll try to screen share with you. Just maybe some helpful little graphs here. Let's see here. Okay, Mark. All right. Can you see my website here that I've got?
yeah,
I'll just
housing market 2019, 2020. Sure.
So there's a website called gordcollins.com, Gord Collins.com. And so they thought, new home sales are good. And they said that prices are up about 5.9%. That makes it 91 straight months for advances. The median home
Wow.
price in the United States rose to 272,100. Um, And so you can see Humboldt and California is a lot more than the national average as far as
Uh,
median home
yeah.
prices. But compared to the rest of California, our county, uh, the median home price from all of California is more like in the I think 650 to 660 range.
Good grief.
So our home price is actually pretty cheap as California goes. But um,
Yeah. But
you came from San Diego,
sure.
Bay Area, LA, all those home prices are a lot more than what ours are up here. So we actually see people selling, their multi-million dollar houses up there and then relocating up here where it's, less congested and nice
Sure.
air, nice climate. Um, Not so much lately, but every once in a while I get people from, down Hollywood, LA, or wanting to just kind of escape the congestion of the big cities and come up
Oh,
here.
yeah. Well,
So
that's our
yeah,
story, as you know.
so you can
Okay.
see kind of what I said. The median home price 272, uh, sales 5.38 million is what it was in September 2019. This is the National Association of Realtors giving us this information. So um, I belong to both the California Association of Realtors and the National Association of Realtors. Um, yeah, this little chart it's September, it's close enough to where we're at right now, but it just
Yeah.
kind of shows, I'll give you a link to that later. But yeah, I would say right now it's a healthy market, both locally and nationally. And um, that's reflective of really good interest rates.
Yeah. Definitely. And same question. Oh, yeah. The other question I've got here is, what factors do you think will influence the local market next year? You have any thoughts on that?
Uh, Ultimately, I think the thing that really affects the either the growth or the non-growth in real estate is just the interest rate that you're given to work with as far as buying. So as long as the interest rates stay, 4% or less than that, I think people are going to want to jump in, because if you do the math and you look at renting versus buying, you're not really paying a whole lot more for, buying a house that you're going to have equity in versus renting, which renting has its value and so forth. But um, I think ultimately everybody wants to be a homeowner and have that as part of their portfolio, or just their peace of mind as an investment. So we'll probably talk about lenders a little bit later in this conversation, but I would say that's the biggest driving factor, is interest rates being affordable for consumers, and right now they are, and they have been that way for the last few years.
Okay. And that probably applies pretty much anywhere. But the only final piece on this question is that do you have a take on the national market for next year? And again, you've kind of referred to that already, but just
Yeah, I'd probably just have to echo that same sentiment, is that the national market will probably continue to grow as well, as long as the interest rates are attractive.
it ultimately it's all about the money. I guess that's
Yeah,
kind of one of the central forces in our lives, for better or for worse.
yeah. I'm not a big stock market guy. I don't invest in stocks, but I do see that there's some correlation between stocks and real estate. But I think a lot of people kind of like investing in real estate because it's tangible, and if the stock market was to completely bottom out, at least you'd have a place um, to actually physically live if that happened.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, that's true. Okay, well, I'm moving on to a subsection in our short question list, calling this California and Humboldt. And here's one for you. What impact, if any, do you see? We're talking about we're switching into purely local topics now. The PG&E
oh,
power
I
outages
lost
that
you,
we've
Mark.
gone through recently. You lost me. Oh, huh. Are you
Hey,
there?
Mark. Yeah, there was a
Yeah,
little bit of a glitch there for about 30 seconds, but do you want to ask that again, or just do you think you got it on your
yeah.
end?
Yeah, no, I can ask it again. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I got a message on my screen that said your internet connection is unstable, but I think we're okay now. Yeah, I'm talking about the local, well, not the local to California, the PG&E power outages that we all suffered through just recently. What impact do you see those power outages having on the market? It's a two-part question, and is there anything homeowners can do to help or to maybe
Hmm.
ameliorate the impact? I mean, you know,
Well, I think right now I don't really see the outages affecting our real estate prices too much. However, if it became the new norm and we were getting these outages, you know, more often than people wanted, which once was enough, for all
yeah,
of it.
once
But
was plenty.
we already have quite a few people leaving our state already, and that's just kind of one more added knock I could see that would kind of be the last straw for people to want to leave. So if we had a big exodus because of PG&E, which I kind of doubt it's going to happen right now, but you never know. Um, I could see that maybe affecting our prices, and if people moved, there would be more inventory, and then if that was the case, you'd probably see home prices kind of um, settle down, and not, there's more inventory, therefore demand is met, and that way prices are not going to be um, moving upwards. That's just my opinion. But as
Yeah,
a most realtors that I talk to, we were inconvenienced by the PG&E because no one could really get any work done because we're all
yeah,
relying on our computers and stuff. But
sure.
right now, I don't see that is a factor here locally right now.
Well, I know I hope you're right, and I think everybody else does too. I have a feeling it boils down to, like you just said, whether or not they continue, and that remains to be seen. I know the CEO of PG&E at one point early on said he thought they would be happening for the next 10 years. Now, people say a lot of things when they're under pressure, which he was, so that may not be the case at all. I
Hmm.
know Elizabeth and I were talking, and I had this thought that if it does seem that they are likely to continue, I'm thinking that it might make sense to invest in a sort of a semi-permanent generator hookup, partially for the convenience and partially for the ultimate property value. If you want to move to an area and you love the area, but the power is kind of unreliable, and one of the homes on your list has that all taken care of, you can get a generator that runs off natural gas, so it becomes
Hmm.
a permanent hookup. They're more expensive, obviously,
Right.
but,
That's a
but
good point. Yeah, I talked to Charles about this as well. I kind of went over some of the questions, and he said he doesn't really see it affecting prices so much, but he wouldn't be surprised if public started looking into alternative energy, companies to do what PG&E is doing. I think we might even have one up here. I can't, some like Redwood Coast Energy Authority, or I can't remember offhand if they're independent from PG&E is what I've heard, but I don't know how they generate power. But I've heard of an alternate source other than PG&E, and maybe that's kind of the way that communities might try to survive if they find that PG&E is just not reliable.
yeah, well, that's really probably a whole different conversation. Actually, I guess there's any number of questions about, like, for example, why can't the King Salmon power plant power the county? And there's been a lot of controversy about that, but remains to be seen. So I know my guess, and this is as a non-professional. I'm not in real estate in any way myself, but it just seems to me that if it were to continue, that I don't see how something like that could help but affect people's desire to move here. Depending, I mean, if you're in California and you're moving in California, then you take it. It's just part of the deal. You're used to it. But if you're, retiring in Oklahoma or something and you want to go someplace where it's warmer, I mean, all of a sudden Florida might start to look better, even with all the bugs and humidity and everything.
I think this story yet to play out. We'll just have to see, if these blackouts are going to be the new norm, and if it is, we can definitely
Y-
talk about this
Yeah, yeah,
later.
exactly.
But you're right. I mean, if I had a choice between getting a house that didn't have a generator or one that was hardwired, um, yeah, I would give a second thought that would be a big plus, knowing that when the power kicks off, I've got a backup that's gonna, you know, ignite and run off of natural gas. Or I just bought a generator last week, and I have yet to even hook it up. But it's nice knowing that, if we do find that situation again, at least I can, power my fridge and my freezer and make sure that
Yeah,
the food doesn't go bad.
yeah, we're probably going to do the same thing. Well, that kind of leads right into the next question. But you referred to this earlier in the interview that individuals and businesses are leaving California due to the many issues we face. And do you see this situation improving anytime soon? Because I ask you because obviously you're not the governor or anything, but your business is pretty well affected by how
Yeah,
attractive California is, and you
that,
talked about
that's
the exodus.
that's true. Unfortunately, I think just because of the political climate in California right now, I just think there's a lot of people leaving because of the, we have homelessness crisis, we have crime. Um, it seems like the governor is being um, lenient on it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bills where we're letting um, felons back on the street, and just um, you know, whether you think California is heading in a socialist direction or not, that's, somebody's opinion. But I kind of see that. I mean, there's quite a division between, um, the conservative people that are in California and those that are okay with the current, political climate. So it seems to me a lot of people that I know, just looking at Facebook or just hearing why they're moving, a lot of it is because they just feel things are too much to the left here in California, and I don't really know how that's going to change. It's tough to say, but I do think there's definitely people leaving to go to other places. Our tax rate in California is pretty high too, and that that doesn't seem like it's changing anytime. So that's kind of a detriment to live in California, is the higher taxes. But you know,
Yeah.
you got to be. People can complain, and that's I guess that's their right to do it. And we can always look and think that the grass is greener, or we can just try to stick it out and try to make where we're living a better place. And um, I can't fault people for leaving, but at the same time, if you want to change the area you're at, then maybe try to do that before you throw in the towel. So
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you mean. It does seem like, I don't know if it's still true, but I know a couple of years ago someone was monitoring the U-Haul business,
hmm
and the deal was something like, to get a U-Haul from here to Texas would have cost you $2,000, and to do it the other way would have cost like 400, because there was such an imbalance. And I mean that, so opinions are subjective, but it's kind of like the Las Vegas bookmakers. There are websites where I guess you can get the actual Las Vegas odds on certain things happening. And I guess the point I'm making is that U-Haul statistic was a real objective indication at the time. This is a couple of years ago. It may have changed. But at the time, there was that much imbalance between people leaving California for Texas compared to the other way. And don't get me wrong, I love California and I've lived in Texas and I prefer California. I think the biggest problem in a nutshell seems to be that it's just getting harder and harder to make a living, you know, and
yeah,
and and you combine hard to make a living with expensive real estate, and
you're
you
right.
see the problem, right?
You're right. I mean, our gas prices. I went to a wedding for a friend of mine in Florida at the beginning of this year, like in spring, and you know, gas was like 250 a gallon over there. And I
Yeah,
went, wow. I haven't
yeah,
seen those
br-
prices since I can't remember when. And just
yeah. Bring some home.
yeah, we have a high cost of living up here in
Yeah,
Humboldt, and you know, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. And I guess there is no real magic bullet. Well, we're moving into a little more optimistic section of the questions here. This one is called housing survival. What can people do? And this refers to our website, where our focus on affordable housing tips, our website, affordablehousingtips.com, which when I do the video, there'll be a logo up at the top, is is to help our audience discover ways they can make housing more affordable. Now, if somebody is currently renting and they would like to be a homeowner, but they have a tight budget, do you have any tips? Do you have any suggestions? What would you suggest they do?
I do. Whenever anyone comes to me and they're saying, we are renting now and we really want to look into buying a house, how could you advise us, Don? Uh, Normally, I say, before we even start looking at houses that you might have seen advertised, you really need to talk to a lender. If you don't have cash to buy a house, you're most likely going to be one of the many that has to get a loan. So I would do some homework and either ask friends or family or people that you trust. Have you ever purchased a home? Do you have a good lender that you could recommend? I have a team of people that I've used frequently that I think are really good. Some of them gave me some of the charts that I might be sharing. But I would talk with a lender that's a good listener and that kind of can understand where you're at financially and put together a plan. If you don't have a big enough down payment right now, they could probably give you some advice on how to sock away that money. Or there's even very low down payment programs out there, Mark. 0%. USDA loans, FHA loans that are like 3.5% down. So really, uh, it would be advantageous for anybody that's thinking about buying a house to talk to a lender. So I would say um, just ask around, or um, talk to your local bank. Sometimes banks have their own mortgage branches that are attractive to their members. So any large bank will have a real estate lending division, and so just shop around and see who's going to give you the best bang for your buck, who's got the best interest rate, um, and then just go from there. So normally after the potential client meets with the lender, they can come back to me and say, we're pre-approved and this is how much we can afford. And so then I'll get together with them and we'll start looking for houses in that price range. And if they're not quite ready to buy, then you just continue to save until you've got enough for that down, and then we can get serious to try to find you a place to potentially be your home. So that's probably the biggest tip I could give you, is just to talk to a lender, because normally a lender will give you a pre-approval letter that lets you know how much you can afford. And whenever I write up an offer for a client, it's pretty much a given. You have to have a pre-approval letter. Otherwise, the seller of the house won't take you seriously, because when you have
Yeah,
that pre-approval letter, it shows that you've done your work to get your finances in order before you even are making the offer.
and I mean, they don't want to waste time on something that doesn't materialize, which without the pre-approval, it could just be talk, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Well, that's good advice, then. Just maybe a little foreshadowing for what might be another interview at some point. I know one term that Elizabeth and I are kind of we're paying attention to recently is the term workforce housing. And that's because it used to be affordable housing referred to just low income people, but now pricing has gotten so crazy that people that are, nurses and police and teachers in the big cities can't afford. So, but didn't you say something about special lending programs, special kinds of mortgages for workforce people or teachers or?
Yeah. In fact, I've not I've not used anything particularly. Uh, Tara Johnson, who's one of the lenders that I use locally with Summit funding, she was kind enough to send me some of the different programs that she offers to people. So I'll go ahead and share one that she gave me, and I think it's here, a teacher flyer. Yeah, can you see
Okay.
that?
Yeah, school teacher and
Yeah,
employee. So depending on what you do for a living, it's possible that you might be able to get some additional break, if you will, on your mortgage, which could turn into a big deal financially, and that's worth investigating as well. It sounds like what you're saying.
yeah, that's one. I guess it's through Cal FHA, and then another one that she showed me was let's see, I think it was, yeah, this one was for Native American loans, which um, I've done some transactions using like tribal money and so forth, but I wasn't aware of Native American specific loans. So you might, if you're Native American, and you might be able to take advantage of, a low down up to just 2.25%, which is much better than FHA is usually about 3.5%. So that's a good loan. There's also one called the USDA Rural Home Loan, and that one I believe is 0% down. There are some fees that you probably have to come up with. Um, the plus on the rural housing loans is that uh, it's a very low down, but the negative is that it's only in certain parts of um, Humboldt, or depending on where you're from, like the city limits of Eureka wouldn't qualify. You'd have to be outside the city limits, someplace like, Rio
Yeah.
Dell, or probably
Okay.
Fortuna, McKinleyville. those will all probably qualify for a possible rural home loan. And I think they have a certain ceiling on how much um, value the house is that you're buying. So that's something you can ask your lender about. Do you offer USDA rural home loan? And if so, I can work with my realtor to try to find me something that's not, that falls within the location parameters that that program has. So yeah, so there's those two programs, and um, like I said, it's very low down. A lot of people think you have to come to the table with like 20% down, and that's not the case.
Huh. Yeah, that sounds really encouraging. So I guess it really depends on your particular situation and depending on what you do and if you happen to be Native American or whatever the case may be, where you happen to be looking. So you might be able to get some
Yes.
extra good deals. Well, that's good news. That's potentially very good news. I think that pretty much covers that one. Well, the next one is a pretty easy one for me. Uh, the question is, what should people look for in a real estate agent? In our case, it turned out their name needed to be Don Chin, and that worked out really well for us. Now that might sound a little self-serving, but bear in mind Don didn't say that. I said that. Don did a
Oh,
great job for us. But
yeah.
but
Wow.
anyway,
That,
that's just an aside.
that's
So
kind of you. I know we looked at a lot of places.
yeah, we sure did. Boy, we hit the ground running, as they say.
We did. Um, I think responsiveness is a huge part of that. Is that you want somebody that's going to, be able to be there to answer questions, um, either on the phone or texting or emails. Uh, that's almost a fault of mine. I think I make myself too accessible, but I have to turn off my phone like at midnight, I guess. But uh, I think having an agent with experience is very helpful. Not to say that new agents can't do a good job, but uh, I think if I was a buyer, I would want somebody that I know is going to represent me to negotiate, what I feel needs to be represented and conveyed. And conversely for sellers as well. If you're looking to sell, you want someone that's going to be in your corner and fight for what you want. Um, for the most part, real estate transactions aren't too um, messy. They're pretty civil. There's not been a whole lot of lawsuits, knock on wood, in my career. But I know it's a stressful time for people. It's a lot of
Yeah,
the real estate is hand holding and being encouraging and letting people know everything's going to be okay, because you have to go through. It's the biggest purchase of your life, and you want to trust who's
yeah,
helping you guide that purchase. So I would say just someone that's a good a good listener, and a lot of it is uh, emotional. A lot of the purchase is emotional, and it's uh, it's tough because you've got somebody that's buying and selling probably the most expensive thing that they own, and so it can be a little um, a little stressful. So I think just having an agent that's kind of even keeled and mellow is a good thing. Um, I think someone that's pretty tech savvy is a good thing in this market. I think you might be asking me some tech questions later,
yeah,
but to me, yeah, it helps to just have a good knowledge of emails and being able to text photos, and just right now the nice thing in my business that wasn't there about 5 years ago is electronic signing. So it's amazing that you can actually fill out a contract, half a world away if you need it to be, or if one party is in one country and one party is in the United States. With digital signing, that is a huge plus. Before, I can't imagine we'd have to, print out something and FedEx it or fax it to who knows where, and then they'd have to go to a Kinko's and sign it and then fax it back. And now I could send a document to uh, two or three different parties that aren't even in the same city and have it back to me like within 5 minutes. So it's pretty cool. I like that part of the technology in real estate, is the ability to do electronic document signing. That's been a huge plus for, I think, both realtors and their clients.
Huh, I wasn't aware of that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You just any document that I normally have to sit down with you and get a wet signature on, I can basically send you a PDF file, and you go through an authentication process that makes sure that it's you who's signing, and
Okay.
after you've set up your account, it's pretty quick. You can sign documents even on your smartphone, Mark, if you know if you were
Wow.
out in the middle, if you're out in the middle of hiking someplace or at the gym and I needed something for you to sign, I could actually send
Yeah,
it to you, and you could just log into your cell phone and sign it with the with the click of your just tapping on your screen.
I'll be darned. Boy, that is a big deal because I remember the FedExing and the overnights and the faxing and yeah, a lot of that nonsense. Holy cripes. Yeah. Well, I know one again going back to our experience with you from the very beginning, we were really impressed with your skills as a photographer. Because
Thank you.
again, I don't know how common that is, but we did a lot of our stuff from 800 miles away. We were in San Diego, and so we were totally relying on the images, and the photographs that you were taking and sending were fabulous, as I recall.
Good. Thank you. I'm
So
kind of a nerd. I'm kind of a tech nerd that way. So when the latest iPhone 11 just came out, I picked that up maybe a couple weeks ago, and the camera on that is just amazing. I think back in the day when you were looking, I probably had like a Kodak digital camera that had a chip, card.
yeah,
So I couldn't instantaneously send it to you. I'd probably have to take those photos out in the field, then download the chip on the
download,
computer, and then paste them into an email to send to you. So it wasn't quite as nice as these days. I could be out on
right?
my iPhone and take a picture and then just text it to you, and you'd see it in
Sure.
seconds. But
Yeah,
uh,
the smartphones were still a few years in the future. In fact, when we came up here, the first phone we got was a Trio, which was one of the last cell phones before the Android and the iPhone and everything just sort of flattened the marketplace.
hmm.
So you're right. Yeah, smartphones were still not quite available yet.
Hey,
But
Mark, I'm going to take a quick drink of water right here. Do you mind?
oh no, no, sure.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Well, I think we're just about done. You almost answered the last question, where we've touched on it a little bit, where, which is how can the internet and other new technology help buyers and buying and selling a house? I mean, you started on that already, but is there
Yeah,
anything else you could add to that?
the e-signing thing just kind of came to me because I use it every day, but I know that um, you know, Mr. General Public probably doesn't even realize we can do that. But with the advent of digital signing, a lot of people use maybe DocuSign in their work, but the program that we use with the California Association of Realtors is called um, Digi DigiSign, or it's ZipLogix is the name of the company that does it. But it's pretty sweet. But I'd have to say, besides the digital signing, the advent of the internet, with all the different virtual tours now that you can get via, going onto websites, the cameras that people are using, are not just your smartphone cameras, or they've got these robots that'll go in and go through the house and give you like total 360-degree view, and then they'll
Oh,
be able to stitch those photos together and give you an overhead view of what the house looks like room by room. And so where you used to see just like a black and white, maybe schematic floor plan of what the house looks like, now I've been seeing the advent of these 3D um, photos that have every room, like you just took the roof off the house and you're looking down at the house.
wow.
So you don't have to really imagine. A lot of times I'll show a house in person to a person that saw it on the internet, and they just saw these flat pictures, and maybe someone took it with a fisheye lens, so the room looks a lot bigger than it actually is. So, sometimes that can lead to disappointment because they're being
Yeah,
selective about what they're showing you. that with these newer cameras, they're picking up so much detail. It's almost like I've seen digital tours where you actually are kind of walking through the house and you can pan up and down and kind of go down to a hallway and take a right and a left and kind of look around. So it's really quite fascinating that the photography has come that far. I really like that part of the technology. I actually sold a house to some people sight unseen. They actually lived in the UK and they wanted
Oh,
to
wow.
migrate to Humboldt. And a couple of years ago, with the advent of FaceTime on my uh, digital phone, I was taking them through a house in Eureka. They were in London watching me go through the house room by room with them. And they bought the house based on just a digital viewing of the
No
house.
kidding.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't happen a whole lot, but that's how
Wow.
good the technology is if you want to trust it. And
They never saw the house before they bought it
never saw it in person.
in person?
Yeah, I
Wow.
they haven't even lived in Humboldt County, but I did really a lot behind the scenes. I would actually take my camera and film me driving down the roads to this house, so they could not just see the house, but also see
Okay.
they could see the neighborhood and just kind of the general
Yeah. Yeah.
surroundings and so forth. So that's
Huh.
pretty wild.
That is a fabulous story, Don, and that is an excellent answer to my question. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Thanks,
You
Mark.
know, the one thing that I guess I could add to answer my own question, and I say this from experience, I have been a remote worker myself for many, many years. And since more and more people are doing that, Elizabeth is doing that now, as a matter of fact. That's another way the technology can help. It can help you pay for the house because you don't have to live where the job is. Whereas at
Right.
one time that wasn't true. So I guess that's a help also. In fact, there are some cities that are offering to pay a cash bonus. Tulsa, Oklahoma, for example. If you are able to work remotely and can prove it, there you can get up to $10,000. I think it is from a couple places. There's a place in Nebraska. There's a city in Iowa. The parts of the country where the weather can be a bit harsh and people may not. It may not be people's first choice, but but the catch is as long as you can work remotely, which
Hmm.
is clever on the part of the city government because what they're doing is they're getting local residents. They're basically siphoning in some revenue from another location in a sense, if you think about it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of clever. But anyway, well that's the end of my list here, and we've gone a little bit over my time estimate. So I appreciate your patience. And I think we're about done. One thing I want to be sure of, Don, is do you want to tell our viewers how they can contact you if someone did want to talk to you about any of these topics or anything?
Sure, I'd be happy to talk with anyone. I have a website which is donchin.net. That's DONCHIN.net. I'm also on Facebook. If you look up Realtor Don Chin on Facebook, it should pull up my website on Facebook. Um, and then my phone number. Can I say my phone number, Mark, or is that something that? Uh,
I I don't think there's a problem. I mean, I think I've used phone numbers online. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, my phone number, if you ever want to reach out to me to call or text me, it's area code 707-499-4446. And email, if you want to reach me, you can go to realtordon@sunlink.net. All
Okay,
right.
great. Super.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, Don, I think that takes care of it. I will put the your contact information and links to the articles. And I was going to say I could probably put a link to the those mortgages you were talking about.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah,
I'll put
I'll send you those files and that way you can share.
so I will add that. And again, for the radio listeners, if you're listening to this, just go to affordablehousingtips.com and you can find the links and things. So that should take care of it. And Don, I can't thank you enough. It's really been great seeing you again.
Thank you,
And
Mark.
you're right. We should do this in person. We're not that far apart
Yeah,
in the world.
I'll have to
But as
grab a
far
bite
as
to eat.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember you took us to Mr. Fish, which is no more, when we when when we first came to town, so we can't go there, but there's other places. So, yeah, one of these days. But so that should take care of it, and, I can't thank you enough, so I sure appreciate it, Don.
It's my pleasure, Mark. And I for a while thought your background that you have there was your house here in Eureka, but I noticed that it got dark here where I'm at, but it didn't get dark where you're at. So,
I
so you
was wondering. Yes, I was wondering because you sold this house, so I don't know if you remember that we didn't really have. I guess that could be the backyard,
yeah, I
but
didn't know
no,
maybe
that
you did a remodel or something.
yeah, no, it would have been a heck of a remodel. Yeah, that's the virtual background in Zoom,
Okay.
and that's funny.
Anyways,
Anyway,
well, say hi to
so
Elizabeth for me. And again, it was my pleasure.
okay, well, Don, thanks a million. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye bye.
Okay, so
Thanks.
long. Bye.